The moment you stop giving people the power to disturb your peace, you become truly free. One of the greatest mistakes people make in life is handing emotional control over to others without even realizing it. It happens slowly, almost invisibly. Someone changes their tone with you, and suddenly your entire mood changes. Someone ignores your message, and your mind begins creating painful stories. A careless comment from another person stays in your thoughts for hours, sometimes even days. Little by little, your emotional state becomes dependent on the behavior, opinions, approval, and attitudes of people around you. And this is where suffering quietly begins. The truth is that many people are not living peacefully because they have unknowingly allowed others to become the owners of their emotional world. Their happiness depends on praise, their confidence depends on acceptance, their peace depends on being understood. But the moment your emotions depend entirely on external behavior, your inner stability disappears. You become vulnerable to every opinion, every criticism, every rejection, and every negative interaction. Life starts feeling exhausting because your emotional balance can be destroyed by something as small as a stranger's attitude or a disappointing conversation. Emotionally strong people understand something that changes everything. Not everyone deserves access to your inner peace. They realize that protecting their emotional state is a personal responsibility. They stop expecting the world to behave perfectly in order to feel calm. They stop demanding constant validation from others. Instead, they build a quiet strength inside themselves that does not collapse every time life becomes uncomfortable. This does not mean they never feel pain or disappointment. It simply means they no longer allow temporary emotions to control their identity or destroy their peace. Think about how many people spend years feeling angry because of things they cannot control. They carry resentment toward family members, former friends, co-workers, or strangers who treated them unfairly. They replay painful moments again and again inside their minds, as if suffering repeatedly will somehow change the past. But every moment spent reliving those emotions gives more power to the very people who caused the pain. The situation may have lasted only a few minutes, but mentally and emotionally, the person continues experiencing it for months or even years. There is a hidden danger in emotional reactions that most people never notice. The more reactive you become, the easier it is for others to influence your life. People quickly learn what angers you, what hurts you, what makes you insecure, and what controls your emotions. Once someone understands your emotional weaknesses, they no longer need physical power to disturb your peace. A few words become enough. A small action becomes enough. Even silence becomes enough to create emotional chaos inside you. This is why emotional discipline is one of the most valuable forms of strength a person can develop. It allows you to observe situations without immediately surrendering to emotional impulses. Instead of reacting instantly, you begin pausing. You begin thinking. You begin asking yourself important questions. Is this situation truly important? Does this person deserve so much emotional energy? Will this matter in a week, a month, or a year? Most of the time, the answer is no, but people destroy their peace because they react before reflecting. There is also another truth that many people struggle to accept. You cannot control how others behave. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you explain yourself. Some people will criticize you even when you are doing your best. Some people will disrespect you simply because they are unhappy within themselves. Trying to control everybody's opinions and behavior is impossible, and the constant attempt to do so creates frustration and emotional exhaustion. The wiser approach is learning to control your response instead of trying to control the world around you. Calm people are not calm because life treats them perfectly. They are calm because they stopped allowing every external situation to enter their inner world. They learned that peace is not found in controlling people. Peace is found in controlling yourself. They no longer argue endlessly to prove their worth. They no longer chase approval from emotionally immature people. They no longer feel the need to react to every insult, every disagreement, or every negative opinion. They understand that emotional reactions often create more damage than the original problem itself. Many conflicts in life become larger simply because emotions take control too quickly. One angry reaction creates another. One emotional response turns a small misunderstanding into a permanent separation. People say things they do not mean because they temporarily lose control over themselves. Later, regret arrives, but the damage has already been done. Emotional mastery prevents unnecessary destruction. It gives you the ability to remain centered even when others lose control around you. A person who cannot control emotions becomes easy to manipulate. Compliments can control them, criticism can control them, rejection can control them, attention can control them, silence can control them. Their emotional state constantly rises and falls depending on external circumstances. But a person who develops emotional independence becomes mentally free. They stop needing constant reassurance. They stop depending on approval to feel valuable. Their confidence becomes internal rather than external. One of the most important realizations a person can have in life is understanding that many negative behaviors are not truly about you. People often carry invisible pain, disappointment, insecurity, anger, and emotional wounds deep inside themselves, and without realizing it, they spread that pain into every interaction they have. This is why some people criticize constantly, insult others, create unnecessary conflict, or try to make others feel small. Their behavior is usually a reflection of their internal struggles rather than the value of the person standing in front of them. When someone is emotionally healthy, they do not feel pleasure in humiliating others. They do not wake up searching for ways to spread bitterness. A peaceful person naturally creates peace around them. A secure person does not feel threatened by another person's success, confidence, beauty, intelligence, or happiness. But wounded people often react differently because they are fighting silent battles within themselves. Sometimes their pain becomes jealousy. Sometimes it becomes anger. Sometimes it becomes coldness, manipulation, criticism, or emotional cruelty. Many people who hurt others are carrying unresolved emotional damage from their past. Some grew up feeling ignored, rejected, or unloved. Others experience betrayal, disappointment, humiliation, or constant criticism for years. Instead of healing properly, they carry those wounds into adulthood. Over time, pain changes the way they see the world. They begin expecting rejection everywhere. They become defensive even when nobody is attacking them. They react aggressively because deep inside they feel unsafe, insecure, or emotionally threatened. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it explains why so many people act negatively without any clear reason. Often you are simply standing in front of someone who has never learned how to process their emotions in a healthy way. Their anger is not born in the current moment. The current moment only activates emotions that have existed inside them for a very long time. A small disagreement becomes explosive because it touches an old wound. A simple misunderstanding becomes personal because they already carry years of unresolved emotional pain. Understanding this changes the way you experience negativity. Instead of immediately taking every insult personally, you begin observing people more carefully. You notice how much emotional pain hides behind certain behaviors. The person constantly seeking attention may actually feel invisible inside. The person attacking others may secretly feel powerless. The person spreading negativity may be deeply unhappy with their own life. Suddenly, instead of absorbing their behavior emotionally, you begin seeing it as evidence of inner suffering. This awareness protects your peace because you stop reacting to every negative encounter as if it defines your worth. Many people spend years emotionally damaged by the opinions of individuals who are emotionally damaged themselves. They allow wounded people to become judges of their identity, confidence, and self-worth. But emotionally intelligent people learn to separate another person's pain from their own value. They stop carrying emotional responsibility for every negative reaction they receive. There is also a dangerous cycle that happens when wounded people never heal. Pain that is not understood often becomes pain that is transferred. A person who was constantly criticized may become highly critical toward others. Someone who felt controlled may become controlling. Someone deeply betrayed may struggle to trust anyone and may push people away before they can get hurt again. Emotional wounds rarely remain silent. They eventually influence behavior, relationships, communication, and decision making. This is why emotional healing is so important. Without healing, people unknowingly create suffering not only for themselves, but also for everyone around them. Hurt spreads easily from one person to another. One angry person creates tension in an entire room. One bitter person can drain energy from every conversation. One emotionally wounded person can damage healthy relationships simply because they interpret everything through fear, insecurity, or unresolved pain. You must also understand that wounded people often react strongly to things that expose what they lack inside themselves. Confidence irritates insecure people. Peace irritates chaotic people. Discipline irritates lazy people. Happiness irritates miserable people. Sometimes your growth silently reminds others of the areas where they feel incomplete, and instead of becoming inspired, they become defensive or hostile. Their negativity is not always hatred toward you personally. Often, it is discomfort with themselves. Emotionally mature people stop expecting wounded individuals to behave with perfect wisdom and kindness all the time. They become more aware, more observant, and less emotionally reactive. They recognize that many harsh words come from internal suffering rather than truth. They stop allowing bitter people to define their identity. They stop carrying emotional poison that never belonged to them in the first place. This understanding creates emotional freedom because you no longer feel the need to fight every negative opinion or defend yourself against every attack. You begin protecting your energy instead of wasting it, trying to change emotionally wounded people who are not ready to heal themselves. One of the clearest signs of emotional maturity is learning that not every conflict deserves your attention, your words, or your energy. Many people spend their lives reacting to every criticism, every disagreement, every insult, and every negative opinion, as if they are required to defend themselves constantly. They feel an overwhelming need to explain, prove, justify, and respond to everything that challenges them. Over time, this habit becomes emotionally exhausting because they are fighting battles that never truly improve their lives. The truth is that many arguments are not even searches for understanding. They are struggles for control, attention, ego, or emotional release. Some people do not enter conversations to listen or learn. They enter conversations to dominate, provoke, or unload frustration. The moment you understand this, you begin seeing arguments differently. You realize that responding emotionally to every negative interaction only pulls you deeper into unnecessary chaos. Silence, distance, and restraint often protect your peace far more effectively than endless explanations ever could. There are people who misunderstand you because they genuinely lack information, and healthy conversations with them can create clarity. But there are also people who misunderstand you because they have already decided not to understand you. No amount of explaining will change their perspective because their goal is not truth. Their goal is emotional satisfaction, superiority, or conflict itself. Arguing with such people becomes like trying to fill a broken container with water. No matter how much energy you pour into the conversation, nothing meaningful remains. Many individuals waste years trying to defend themselves against every accusation or criticism they hear. They become emotionally trapped by the opinions of people who contribute nothing valuable to their lives. A stranger's comment ruins their day. A relative's criticism destroys their confidence. A disagreement at work follows them home mentally for hours. They replay conversations repeatedly in their minds, imagining better responses, stronger arguments, and different outcomes. But the more attention they give to these situations, the more emotional control they surrender. Emotionally wise people understand something powerful. Attention is a form of energy, and energy is limited. Every unnecessary argument drains mental clarity, emotional stability, and inner peace. This is why mature individuals become selective about where they invest themselves emotionally. They stop trying to win every debate. They stop needing everyone to agree with them. They stop chasing validation through endless explanations. Instead, they focus on protecting their emotional balance and preserving their peace. There is also a hidden danger in constantly reacting to provocation. People quickly learn what controls you emotionally. If someone can predict your reactions easily, they can manipulate your state of mind whenever they choose. A simple comment becomes enough to disturb your peace. A small disagreement becomes enough to ruin your entire day. Your emotions become controlled externally instead of internally. This is why emotional discipline is so important. Calmness removes power from people who seek emotional reactions from you. Sometimes silence communicates more strength than words ever could. Not because you are weak, afraid, or incapable of defending yourself, but because you recognize that certain conversations are beneath your peace. There is great wisdom in knowing when to walk away mentally and emotionally from situations that only create stress without producing understanding or growth. Silence is not surrender. In many cases, silence is self-respect. Many arguments continue endlessly because both people become more focused on winning than understanding. Pride enters the conversation, emotions rise, and suddenly the original issue no longer matters. The discussion becomes a battle of ego rather than a search for truth. Harsh words are exchanged, relationships become damaged, emotional wounds deepen. Later, both individuals may regret the intensity of the conflict, but the damage created in emotional moments often lasts far longer than expected. People who constantly react impulsively often confuse emotional intensity with strength. They believe louder reactions make them powerful. They believe immediate responses prove confidence. But true strength is often quiet. True confidence does not feel threatened by every disagreement. A secure person does not need to dominate every conversation or correct every opinion. They understand that peace is more valuable than temporary emotional victories. There are moments in life when protecting your peace matters more than protecting your pride. This can be difficult because the human ego naturally wants validation, recognition, and control. It wants to prove others wrong. It wants acknowledgement. But emotional growth requires learning that not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every criticism deserves defense. Not every negative opinion deserves emotional investment. Some people will dislike you no matter how kind, intelligent, honest, or respectful you are. Some individuals project their own frustrations onto others because it temporarily relieves their inner discomfort. Trying to convince everyone to see your value is an endless and exhausting mission. Emotionally mature people eventually stop chasing universal approval because they understand it is impossible. The ability to remain calm during conflict creates enormous emotional freedom. Instead of becoming trapped inside emotional battles, you develop the ability to observe situations without immediately losing control over yourself. You become less reactive, less impulsive, and less vulnerable to unnecessary stress. You stop carrying emotional tension from one conversation into the rest of your day. Your mind becomes clearer because it is no longer overcrowded with endless arguments and imagined responses. Most people misunderstand the meaning of strength. They associate strength with loudness, dominance, aggression, or the ability to overpower others. Society often praises those who react instantly, speak forcefully, and display intense emotions without hesitation. But real strength is something much deeper and far more difficult to achieve. Real strength is the ability to remain in control of yourself when emotions try to take control of you. It is easy to act calmly when everything is peaceful and comfortable. The true test of character appears when life becomes frustrating, unfair, disappointing, or emotionally painful. Anyone can lose control during anger. Anyone can shout when feeling disrespected. Anyone can react impulsively when emotions become intense. But remaining calm during difficult moments requires discipline, awareness, patience, and inner stability. Emotional control is not the absence of feelings. It does not mean becoming cold, emotionless, or disconnected from life. It means refusing to let temporary emotions control your words, actions, decisions, and relationships. Many people destroy valuable parts of their lives because they react emotionally without thinking clearly. A few seconds of anger can damage relationships built over years. One emotional decision can create consequences that last for a lifetime. Harsh words spoken during moments of frustration often leave scars that apologies cannot fully erase. This is why emotional control is one of the most important forms of intelligence a person can develop. It protects not only your peace, but also your future. When emotions become intense, the mind often loses clarity. Anger creates impulsiveness. Fear creates irrational thinking. Jealousy creates insecurity. Pride creates blindness. In emotional moments, people frequently say things they do not truly mean or make choices they later regret deeply. Emotional reactions feel powerful in the moment, but they often create long-term damage once the emotion fades away. A calm mind sees situations more clearly. A calm mind thinks before reacting. A calm mind protects itself from unnecessary destruction. Emotionally controlled people understand that feelings are temporary. They do not allow a passing emotion to dictate permanent decisions. They know that frustration eventually passes, anger eventually fades, and disappointment eventually softens. Because of this awareness, they develop the habit of pausing before reacting. That pause becomes incredibly powerful. In that small moment of restraint, they create space between emotion and action. That space allows wisdom to enter where impulsiveness would normally take over. Many people believe emotional control makes a person weak or passive, but the opposite is true. Losing control is easy. Discipline is difficult. Reacting immediately requires no training. Remaining composed during emotional pressure requires enormous inner strength. Calm individuals are often stronger than aggressive individuals because they are capable of managing themselves even during emotionally charged situations. Their peace is not fragile. Their emotions are not easily manipulated by every external event. Life constantly presents situations designed to test emotional stability. People disappoint you, plans fail, criticism appears unexpectedly, betrayal happens, stress increases, pressure builds. In these moments, emotional control becomes one of the greatest forms of personal power. A person who controls emotions remains capable of thinking clearly under pressure. They make better decisions because emotions do not completely dominate their judgment. They respond intentionally instead of reacting impulsively. There is also a major difference between suppressing emotions and controlling emotions. Suppression means pretending emotions do not exist while silently carrying them inside. Emotional control means acknowledging emotions honestly without becoming controlled by them. Healthy emotional strength does not deny pain, sadness, frustration, or anger. Instead, it learns how to process those emotions responsibly and intelligently. Emotionally mature people feel deeply, but they do not allow feelings to become destructive forces in their lives. One of the greatest advantages of emotional control is freedom from manipulation. People quickly recognize when someone is emotionally reactive. They learn which words trigger anger, insecurity, fear, or frustration. Once emotional weaknesses become visible, manipulation becomes easier. A reactive person can be controlled through criticism, attention, rejection, or emotional pressure. But a calm person becomes difficult to manipulate because they do not surrender emotional control so easily. Their reactions are thoughtful instead of automatic. Emotional control also creates stronger relationships. Conversations become healthier because reactions are less impulsive. Conflicts become easier to resolve because emotions do not escalate uncontrollably. Trust grows when people know you will not explode emotionally during every disagreement or stressful moment. Calm individuals create emotional safety around them because they bring stability instead of chaos into relationships and environments. Many people spend years trying to control others while completely lacking control over themselves. They want to control opinions, behavior, outcomes, and situations outside their power. But true personal growth begins when attention shifts inward. The strongest person in the room is not always the loudest or most dominant. Often, it is the individual who remains centered while others lose control emotionally. That calmness reflects deep internal discipline and self-awareness. As emotional control develops, life begins to feel lighter and clearer. Stress loses some of its power. Criticism becomes less destructive. Difficult situations no longer create the same level of emotional chaos. Instead of reacting automatically to every challenge, you begin responding with greater awareness and intention. Your emotions stop controlling your identity because you finally learn how to lead them instead of being led by them. One of the biggest causes of emotional suffering is the habit of taking everything personally. Many people move through life constantly interpreting other people's actions, words, moods, and opinions as direct reflections of their own value. If someone speaks coldly, they immediately assume they are disliked. If someone criticizes them, they begin doubting themselves. If someone becomes distant, they search for personal faults and hidden mistakes. Over time, this creates a life filled with unnecessary anxiety, insecurity, and emotional exhaustion because their peace becomes dependent on constantly analyzing the behavior of others. The truth is that most people are fighting battles that have nothing to do with you. Every person carries private thoughts, emotional struggles, disappointments, fears, pressures, and frustrations that others cannot fully see. Sometimes people react negatively because they are stressed, overwhelmed, insecure, tired, or emotionally wounded. Their behavior may have little connection to your worth, but when you take everything personally, you absorb emotions and problems that were never truly yours to carry. Emotionally sensitive people often spend enormous amounts of energy trying to understand why others behave in certain ways toward them. They replay conversations repeatedly inside their minds, searching for hidden meanings behind every word or facial expression. A delayed message becomes a personal rejection. A disagreement becomes evidence of failure. Silence becomes proof of being unwanted. Their mind creates painful stories from incomplete information, and those stories slowly damage their confidence and peace. One of the most freeing realizations in life is understanding that people usually act according to their own internal world rather than according to your value. Someone who is deeply insecure may criticize others constantly because criticizing people temporarily makes them feel superior. Someone carrying anger may speak harshly even to people who have done nothing wrong. Someone emotionally immature may react selfishly without considering how their behavior affects others. Their actions reveal more about their inner condition than about your identity. This awareness changes the way you experience criticism, rejection, and conflict. Instead of automatically assuming every negative experience defines your worth, you begin seeing human behavior with greater emotional intelligence. You realize that not everyone has healed emotionally, not everyone communicates maturely, not everyone knows how to process emotions responsibly. Some people spread confusion because they are confused themselves. Some people create chaos because chaos exists inside them already. Taking everything personally also creates emotional dependence on external validation. People begin needing constant approval in order to feel secure. Compliments temporarily raise confidence, while criticism instantly destroys it. Their self-worth becomes unstable because it depends entirely on how others respond to them. This creates an exhausting emotional cycle where peace constantly rises and falls according to external opinions. Emotionally strong individuals develop a more stable sense of identity. They stop allowing every opinion to define them because they understand that opinions are often influenced by personal bias, emotions, projections, and individual experiences. One person may admire you while another criticizes you for the exact same quality. This reveals an important truth. People do not always see you objectively. They see you through the lens of their own emotions, experiences, insecurities, expectations, and beliefs. There are people who will misunderstand you no matter how honestly you communicate. There are individuals who will judge you based on their assumptions rather than reality. Some people project their fears and frustrations onto others because it is easier than confronting themselves honestly. If you spend your life trying to control how everybody perceives you, you will become emotionally trapped by an impossible mission. Learning not to take everything personally creates tremendous emotional freedom. You stop carrying emotional weight that does not belong to you. You stop feeling responsible for every mood, reaction, or opinion around you. Instead of becoming emotionally overwhelmed by other people's behavior, you begin focusing more on your own character, values, and actions. This shift changes the entire quality of your inner life because your emotional stability becomes more internal rather than external. This does not mean becoming indifferent or careless about others. Healthy emotional detachment is not emotional coldness. It simply means recognizing that another person's behavior does not always require you to question your worth. It means creating emotional boundaries that protect your peace from unnecessary damage. You still listen, learn, grow, and reflect honestly when needed, but you stop automatically assuming every negative interaction is a personal attack against your identity. People who take everything personally often become emotionally drained because they constantly absorb the emotional energy of others. They carry tension from conversations long after they end. They become deeply affected by criticism from people whose opinions should not even matter significantly in their lives. They overthink situations repeatedly, searching for explanations that may not even exist. Over time, this emotional habit creates stress, insecurity, and mental exhaustion. When you stop taking everything personally, your mind becomes calmer and clearer. You waste less energy over analyzing people's behavior. You become less emotionally reactive and more emotionally balanced. Other people's moods stop controlling your inner state so easily. You gain the ability to observe situations without immediately attaching your identity and self-worth to them. Criticism becomes easier to evaluate objectively instead of emotionally. Rejection becomes less devastating because you understand that not every outcome is a reflection of your value as a person. Inner peace is one of the most valuable things a human being can possess, yet most people sacrifice it far too easily. They give it away during arguments that never truly mattered. They lose it trying to satisfy people who can never be satisfied. They destroy it by overthinking situations they cannot control. Day after day, they allow stress, negativity, criticism, conflict, and emotional chaos to enter their minds until peace becomes something rare instead of something protected. Many people spend their entire lives searching for happiness while constantly abandoning the very peace that could have brought them fulfillment. The modern world constantly pulls attention toward noise, pressure, comparison, and emotional overload. People are surrounded by endless opinions, expectations, distractions, and demands. Everyone wants immediate reactions. Everyone wants emotional energy. Everyone wants access to your thoughts, your attention, your emotions, and your time. If you do not learn to protect your inner peace intentionally, the world will slowly consume your emotional stability without you even noticing it. Many people believe peace comes from controlling external circumstances perfectly. They think they will finally feel calm once everybody treats them correctly, once problems disappear, once success arrives, or once life becomes easier. But life rarely stays peaceful for long periods without challenges. Difficult people continue existing. Unexpected problems continue appearing. Criticism, disappointment, pressure, and uncertainty remain part of human life. Waiting for the world to become perfect before protecting your peace means you may never experience peace at all. True inner peace begins when you stop allowing external situations to control your internal state completely. It develops when you understand that protecting your emotional stability is a responsibility, not an accident. Peace is not passive. It requires conscious decisions every single day. It requires choosing what deserves your energy and what does not. It requires learning when to walk away, when to stay silent, when to let go, and when to stop carrying emotional burdens that are damaging your mind. One of the greatest threats to inner peace is emotional attachment to things outside your control. People suffer deeply because they try to control opinions, outcomes, relationships, and situations that cannot be fully controlled. They become emotionally exhausted trying to force understanding from people committed to misunderstanding them. They become consumed by frustration because reality refuses to follow their expectations perfectly. The more tightly a person clings to controlling everything externally, the more fragile their peace becomes internally. Protecting your peace also requires creating emotional boundaries. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy, attention, and emotions. Some people constantly bring negativity, drama, criticism, manipulation, or emotional chaos into every interaction. If you continuously allow emotionally destructive influences into your life without limits, your peace slowly disappears. Emotionally mature people understand that protecting their mental and emotional health sometimes requires distance, silence, or separation from unhealthy environments and relationships. Many individuals feel guilty for prioritizing peace because they confuse peace with selfishness. They believe constantly sacrificing themselves emotionally is a sign of goodness. They tolerate disrespect repeatedly. They remain in emotionally draining situations too long. They absorb the stress and negativity of everyone around them while neglecting their own emotional needs. Eventually, exhaustion replaces peace entirely. A person who never protects inner balance eventually loses the ability to think clearly, feel joy deeply, or live calmly. Peace also requires learning to release unnecessary mental weight. Many people carry emotional pain from years ago as if reliving suffering repeatedly will somehow improve the past. They replay painful memories, regrets, betrayals, and disappointments endlessly inside their minds. Their body moves forward in time, but emotionally they remain trapped inside old wounds. Inner peace becomes impossible when the mind constantly lives inside unresolved emotional pain. Forgiveness often becomes an important part of protecting peace, not because harmful behavior was acceptable, but because carrying permanent resentment poisons the person holding it. Anger held for years slowly damages emotional health from within. Resentment creates constant emotional tension that prevents calmness from fully existing. Letting go does not always mean reconnecting with people who caused pain. Sometimes it simply means refusing to allow old pain to continue controlling your emotional life. Another important truth is that peace requires reducing unnecessary emotional noise. Many people constantly surround themselves with conflict, negativity, comparison, gossip, and stimulation. Their minds never rest because they are continuously consuming emotional chaos from conversations, environments, media, and unhealthy relationships. A peaceful life requires intentional emotional discipline. It requires becoming selective about what enters your mind and what deserves space inside your thoughts. Calm individuals are not calm because their lives are free from difficulty. They are calm because they became protective of their inner world. They no longer react impulsively to every problem. They no longer chase validation from everyone around them. They no longer feel responsible for fixing every situation or pleasing every person. They understand that peace is fragile when neglected and powerful when protected consistently. As inner peace grows stronger, life begins to feel different. Stress no longer controls every thought. Criticism loses some of its emotional power. Small problems stop feeling overwhelming. The mind becomes quieter, clearer, and more stable. Emotional reactions become less impulsive because there is greater awareness and self-control. Instead of constantly feeling mentally exhausted by external chaos, you begin carrying a deeper sense of stability within yourself, regardless of what happens around you.